Hello, welcome back, and in this video I will talk about the books I read during the spring. I've already moved some of the copies I have to my parents' home, so I can't show you everything physically, but yeah, I don't think that anyone cares. So actually in March I haven't finished any books. I've started some, but yeah, so it's nothing to talk about. Then in April I took part in Owl's Magical Readathon, so I will not give you complete wrap-up. I will just kind of name the books. So if you're interested in more in-depth opinion, you can watch video with readathon wrap-up. But here I will just name the titles. So I read Once and Future by Capetta and Cori. Actually, for that book I have a separate review, so you can also go and watch that one. I read one comic book, was kind of translate like Everyday Life of Magicians by Stan and Kirill. Also, I've read The Geek, Feminist Revolution by Kameron Hurley. I've read this as an audiobook. This is non-fiction. Then I read this one. This is a collection of poetry in Belarusian. The title is Скрозь, кіламетры, also Аляксей Арцёмаў, if it tells something to you. Then another non-fiction, Lingo by Gaston, Dorren, about European languages. Yeah, the full title is Lingo around Europe in 60 languages, basically. Also, I read short story collection The Golden Apples of the Sun by Bradbury, and also I read another poetry collection, Belarusian, called Ruны, Pярунавы, also is Rыгor Барадулін. It was basically everything I read in April, which is quite a lot, surprisingly. Then May, actually I filmed this like a week ahead, so I may have finished one of the books, but first of all, I finished already Tales of Pirx as a Pilot by Stanislaw. I also had a physical copy, but I brought it when I have a vacation. I brought it to my parents' home and finished it there, so I've decided not to bring it back to this flat. Yeah, actually I really liked it. I've read some of the works by Stanislaw before, but it wasn't, I don't know, for me it wasn't like that amazing. It was really interesting, but not like that cool. This is like definitely 5 over 5. So this is a short story collection about pilot Pirx. He's a space pilot, and the collection starts from his early days where he's only studying in pilot academy, and to the point where he's a really experienced pilot. And I don't know, this is, maybe it was just a great translation, but it was such interesting, such hilarious moments, and like this it has a couple of like serious bits, but it also quite a lot of funny parts. Like I really enjoyed reading it, and I would definitely recommend it if you like sci-fi and really like short stories. Also have a book by Carsac. It includes 2 stories, 2 novels. One of them is The Robinson of Cosmos, and I finished that one, and those of November, but again I bring this book to my parents' home and decided not to pack it in my bags, to bring it back. And I haven't finished the last novel. Actually, I thought like I would come back before the month finished, but it seems like I will not. So I could not finish it in May. I have decided whatever I will transfer it to the summer TBR, but it's almost done. What I could tell about this book, it's not wasn't like that cool of the previous one, but I also really enjoyed it. So about the Robinsons of Cosmos, the idea is that it's happened like big space cataclysm, and because of the parts of the Earth was just transferred to the different planet, probably to in different universe maybe, and so people who was like on these places of the Earth have to deal with living in a completely new environment, because eventually like the only like some pieces of the Earth was transferred there, and around this piece there is like a completely different planet with completely different animals and actually conscious life beings also who inhabited this planet. So yeah, it was really cool. Really, one problem I had is that this is very beginning, because I'm not sure in what year it was written, but it probably is quite old, because there is even, I don't talk about like smartphones, yeah, there is no mentioning of computers and television. So this was quite an old story, but yes, the technology is quite old, but they have space travel. In the very beginning, this mentions that the brother of main character just returned from the space expedition to Neptune, and as you can tell from the age of the characters, it's not like a lifelong trip. This is really fast, so they have really powerful spaceships and ability to travel between planets. And I feel like this expedition was something like special, but they probably travel to the moon and to the Mars on a more regular basis. And with that, the like everyday life is like probably just fits the everyday life of the time when author was writing this book, and it feels weird. I mean, I've read quite a lot of old sci-fi, so at the time I was reading, it was like futuristic, but nowadays you can read it as alternative history because it's like set in the past for us. But for example, I really like Jules Verne, and he also has quite a lot of some interesting stuff, but all of his new inventions like band together really nicely with the technology they had at this time when the book was written. So yeah, it feels weird for us, for a reader from the future who knows how the technology evolved actually, but anyway, it feels organic and it's interesting. With this book, like it was weird, and what's the most confusing, it was like the only mentioning like the main character meet his brother, talking about this expedition, and that they found some anomaly in the space, and the main character then goes to his uncle, I believe, and he's astronomer, and he also see like this some weird stuff in space, and they want to call like not like write a letter, but send like telegraph message. I'm not sure how to call it in English, but yeah, they want to send a message to his brother, so he will come up and maybe share some notes or anything about this expedition. But like cataclysm actually happened like before that, because he could come, and that's it. It's like no mentioning of space travel anymore, and I don't feel it was necessary for the story. But yeah, it was my like only problem with this book, because actually this was really interesting story. I love the world building of this new planet, because they also really invented really interesting species, really interesting animals. It was really fascinating to read. Also, one surprising fact, this book is actually written as a memoir. So main character in his old age, kind of telling us a story about his youth and how this was happened when he was young. And yeah, I've read another fiction written in such format, and yeah, so stuff I like. It's narrator, like the older character, doesn't interrupt a lot and doesn't make a lot of remarks, and it may sounds weird, but so he's sometimes making remarks like, oh, he was talking about something and commented like, yeah, it was before something else happened. So like he's talking to the future generations who is just familiar with some historical dates from that time, but he's not making comments like, he's not taking, oh, like it was bad decision, I was stupid, or it was like something. He doesn't add emotional response to that. It may sound so weird, I mean, to you as a good point for the book, but my problem is, like, I read another book written in such format. It was The Days of the Comet by Herbert Wells, and in that book, this is also another like space cataclysm, but in that book, also discovered in some kind of gas, and it makes all the people like the better versions of themselves. So no jealousy, no anger, no wars, no, like, everyone lives happy life in communities when they share everything and everyone. So like polyamorous relationship and all the great stuff. And also like older character talking about his younger days when the cataclysm happened, but in that book he's constantly talking like, oh, like I was such stupid, like, but it's because we wasn't the better people, but nowadays it wouldn't happen, or like I was such poor and I have such horrible shoes, but nowadays they wouldn't happen because we provide we make like better clothes and everything lives great. And it irritated me that much, like, you can even tell. This is my, like, least favorite Herbert Wells book. Yeah, but thanks God it wasn't the case with that one, and I really enjoyed reading it, so I'm really excited to finish the book and read another novel. But it would be a bit later. Also because I'm filming a bit ahead. I may finish this book and I may not, because I've started to read How to Be a Girl by Moran. This book was in my list of the books I want to read in 2019. I've actually started it in March, and yes, I can tell I still haven't finished it because I was quite excited about the book, but when I started, there was some moment in the beginning I was completely pissed off, and I was like, wow, gross. And I just want to read it. But then I was like, yeah, I heard a really good review on this book, so I thought like maybe I should give it a chance. And yeah, in May I continued reading it, and now I'm like about 1/3 of the book. So I may still finish it in a week, but I'm not sure. Do I like really want to continue? Because I'm reading it, and some moments are interesting, and eventually how this main character reinventing herself, and also the concept of fake it until you make it. It's quite interesting, but I don't know, I don't click with the character. There's some moments which completely piss me off. I thought I would be prepared for that, but eventually I'm not. So like I'm still not sure, do I wanna finish it, or it would be better to just DNFed it. I guess if I wouldn't finish it within that week, I will just DNF this book. Because if I will finish it, I will probably give it maximum 3 stars, probably even less. I don't know. Unfortunately, this book wasn't for me. That's it. So yeah, that was all the books I read this spring. If you're interested in more in-depth reviews for the books I've named in the beginning, you can go to the separate wrap-up for the readathon. And yeah, that's all. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.